This is What If I Told You, the event psychology video podcast for event professionals in which Victoria Mady, event consultant and host, talks with the world's top minds in behavioral science, neuroscience, and psychology on how to transform events using insights about human behavior and mind. For more science-based tips, join Event Psychology Club at eventpsychology.gumroad.com. Also, check out Victoria's online course, Event Psychology Lab, at eventpsychology.thinkific.com, which covers key behavioral science concepts and offers research-backed solutions to your event challenges. This course is a unique opportunity to upgrade your industry skills and gain a competitive edge without adding to your already busy schedule. Now, enjoy the conversation.
Hello, I'm Victoria Mady, and this is What If I Told You, the Event Psychology podcast, where I talk all things event psychology, that is, how to apply brain science insights in events. Today, my guest is Milena Nikolova, and Milena is a leading expert in human behavior and travel and leisure. She uses knowledge about how people think, decide, and act to power improvements in market success and sustainability performance in the travel and events sector. She and her team at BehaviorSMART support enterprises and destination authorities in achieving goals by understanding and applying smart behavior changes. Milena is a frequent speaker at international tourism and MICE industry events on topics such as understanding human behavior and sustainability, new patterns of consumer behavior, behavior smart innovations, and others. She is the author of the first book that explores the potential of applying knowledge from behavioral sciences to strategic issues in the travel and leisure industry. Milena, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to be part of this domain of exploring the depths of psychology and how they can help us do things better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited to talk about the topic. And the topic of behavioral science and sustainability has been on my bucket list for a long time. But even more than that, I was looking for an expert that would focus on applying behavioral science to tourism and event sectors, and someone who helps, destinations, business travelers in particular, to improve sustainability aspect. So then I found you, and I'm very excited that we are able to talk about that. And I was also checking the BehaviorSMART community for tourism, and I'm going to ask you a question about that as well. First, let's start from the very beginning.
Sure.
BehaviorSMART sustainability. What is it?
It really means accounting for human behavior and how people really think, decide, and act on sustainability. It's really interesting that we have been talking about sustainability as something that's really important and that we just need to make non-negotiable in the way that we do business, in the way that we live, in the way that we think about the future. Yet, we have been so slow at looking at human behavior. And when you think about it, what complicates our transition to sustainability is the transition from a human behavior point of view. We have a lot of technologies, we have a lot of new solutions, but we have been slow in adopting them and incorporating them in our life. And the main barrier has been the change in human behavior. And that's why we believe that sustainability cannot really happen unless we take that behavior smart approach. And we really look at the current situation, why people are say they want to be sustainable and they feel that sustainability is so important, yet when they have to act or pay for it, they don't. So we need to understand what are these barriers, and then once we know them, to actually begin eliminating them. So this is at the core of BehaviorSMART sustainability, really making sure that we consider the psychological, the behavioral aspect as part of the solution.
Absolutely. And I know that, sustainability is a hot topic in events
Absolutely.
So, what do you see when it comes to tourism and event sector? What specificity, what specific questions and challenges are there when it comes to sustainability?
One of the things that we have to acknowledge, and that's valid not only for events and leisure and business travel, if you will. A lot of the ecosystems or systems in our society have been built in a way that doesn't consider sustainability at all. So in that sense, in many situations, things are systematically set to make sustainability either not an alternative or to make it an alternative that actually requires effort. It requires thinking, it requires education, it requires effort. That's really what it is. And when you make something and you put a cost on it, whether it's effort, whether it's monetary cost, or the cost of sacrificing comforts or benefits and so on, then you're essentially making it more complicated. Now, in certain situations, there are behavioral techniques that actually call for making something more complicated as a solution. But in our case, really, if we want to normalize sustainability and make it part of everyday working and living, including events, our realities in events, we have to find all opportunities to make sustainability easier.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, in the events and in the travel and leisure industry, one of the main priorities should be to look for all opportunities to really place sustainability either in the design, to not even make people think about it or make a choice, just make it part of the norm, part of the design, or everywhere where that's possible to make it easier for people to opt for the sustainable option. So this, for me, is the biggest barrier, I guess, that we need to overcome in order to really move towards normalizing sustainability. Now, that doesn't mean that there's going to be that everything is going to be easily solved. There will be areas, processes, moments of the events experience, both for events professionals, but also for event attendees, where we will have to make an effort, where we will have to mindfully get people to shift their mindset, to shift the way that they're doing things. But until we get to those moments, there's actually many other episodes and moments in the journey where things can happen very easily, simply by making things easy, simply by changing a little bit how we present options, simply by changing what is the default option. And in many of those instances, it's not going to cause any disruption for the users, for the professionals, yet it will make shifts towards the direction in which we need to be moving.
Absolutely. I so much agree. I think when it comes to improving sustainability, I see it as a partnership between all the parties, right? Between destinations, planners, and attendees themselves. And what I see mostly being done is, on the part of for example, destinations and planners, they do make some conscious efforts to improve sustainability. But then there is another party, attendees. So how can you make them comply, and do their part, right? So how can behavioral science help here?
First, as I mentioned, one of the biggest value added of behavior smart sustainability is the need to first understand why people are behaving in the way that you don't want them to. So for me, this is often misunderstood and undermined, but it's actually a major source of insights, and sometimes simple solutions that we are simply ignoring. And they're like a treasure chest that's somewhere near to you, and you are looking at the other areas around you, and you're just missing what you have right next to you. So here's the thing. One of the things that we need to understand is that people often make unsustainable choices simply because they prioritize something else. In leisure travel, we talk about the fact that when you are going to a destination, you are primarily there to have an outstanding experience, to create memories that you take home and share with your friends. So that means that at any given moment that you have to choose between having an outstanding experience or having something or enjoying something that's going to make that experience even better, and being a responsible citizen of the world, you're going to go with the first. The same thing with events. I go to very many conferences. I am there to meet new people, to reconnect with colleagues or friends from the respective circles, to exchange thoughts, to engage in conversations that stimulate my own professional ideas and thinking. So this is my priority. So at any moment I am having a conversation that's interesting, that's exciting for me, and I am thirsty, I'm going to reach out and drink from whatever is easiest. I'm not going to be crazy if it's a plastic bottle, but I'm also not going to interrupt my conversation to make an effort and find a water fountain to fill up my reusable bottle. So I know this is a very simple example, but it is what illustrates exactly how the human mind works when it comes to sustainability, especially in leisure and events context. We, in most situations, simply have another priority that drives our behavior. And so that is why, if we understand that, and we have enough proof and studies in behavioral sciences that confirm that, if we understand that this is how we treat sustainability in this context, we will then get to the right solutions and understand that education and simply providing information is not going to get us very far. It almost will be like, and has been, because we have been trying to educate and provide information, it feels like swimming against the current, because you're fighting against a psychological force that works against you. So this is why, instead of making the effort to educate the event goers on what is the sustainable choice, if you make it easier for them to make that choice or simply to go for that behavior, then it actually will make a much bigger difference. Because people can continue having their conversation, they can continue enjoying the very reason why they're at these events, and at the same time be responsible and lower the footprint of their travel, of their attendance and consumption decisions. So this to
and
me
develop
is
a habit.
Absolutely. Well, this is actually something, you're bringing up something very important, because when I talk about this reversal process of not educating, but actually changing the setting so that you set people up for the sustainable behavior, I often get asked, okay, but does that mean that we should stop educating altogether? And my answer to this is no. What we know from behavioral sciences is that still information and educating, making people mindful about the fact that they have just had their enjoyable conversation, but also had, managed to stay within 30% of the footprint that of a typical event goer, let's say, that sticks in their mind, and that actually impresses them. It adds to their satisfaction, because all of us ultimately want to be good people, good members of society, and contributors to a better future. And when we hear that we have done that without much effort, that actually feels quite nice. But what it also does is that it teaches us that you can be a responsible event goer, and that doesn't have to come at a cost of your experience and your efforts. So when that happens to you a couple of times, then you begin looking for that. And that's how we will be changing patterns, changing demand, and also how we can normalize sustainability. If all events begin changing small things that make it easy for you to be plastics free, that make it easy for you to walk more, that make it easy for you to go for the local options, for the vegetarian options, then we will begin expecting that and treating that as a norm. And this is how we will see the shifts in the sector in a meaningful and impactful way.
Absolutely. I love this roadmap that you lay, because it's kind of, it's exactly how you describe it. Make it easy, pay attention to what people do, what their priorities are, change their setting, and then make sure that you intentionally do that so that people form a habit of behaving sustainably, right?
Absolutely.
I love it. So my next question is, and you kind of touched upon that, but I wanted to ask it again. How do we balance sustainability, cost effectiveness, and attendee satisfaction? And I guess this is one of the key questions, key risks that event planners see when it comes to sustainability practices.
Great question. So there's a couple of points here that I want to make. One of the things is that we actually hold some wrong assumptions that we turn into barriers in the process of transitioning towards more sustainable operations. One is that, for example, taking away choice from clients, event goers, travelers necessarily leads to a negative outcome in terms of satisfaction. Behavioral science knows that that there are actually many situations when alleviating people from choices, simplifying the choice, or taking away the decision altogether, actually is well perceived by people, and in many cases it actually increases their satisfaction, because our lives are set in a way that requires thousands and thousands of decisions, some small, some more significant, but thousands of decisions in our everyday life. And decisions are often overwhelming. They require that you stop, that you think, that you look at the options. In many cases, and I know you've talked about this, and obviously this is one of the key domains that behavioral scientists look at. In many cases, we get tempted to use some shortcuts so that we can actually cut this process down. But the very reason that we look to cut that process down is that we are overwhelmed by decision making. So in many situations, sparing people the effort actually can be welcome. The other thing that we need to understand is that many decisions are actually not important to people. Whether I'm going to drink water from a plastic bottle or a reusable bottle, for many people, it's actually not important as long as they can satisfy their thirst. It's not really important. Whether you change my towel every day or every 3 days, it's not important to me. And these are all points in the event going or leisure travel experience that actually end up producing a significant share of the undesired footprint, yet they actually are not important for the user and the customer. So people, if they begin sort of cleaning decisions, these are the first ones to go. They're not going to think about it. They'll just go with whatever is set as the default. So this is why we need to get rid of ourselves of the assumption that people care about making every little choice, and in many situations just make that choice on their behalf, because it's going to be easier for them, and it's going to be better for us and for our destination and for our events venue and for our bottom line in many cases. So this is one important aspect when it comes to looking at the relationship between doing the right thing, balancing costs and effort and satisfaction. Another aspect is that there are actually tons of things that we can change that are not very difficult and that ultimately not only do not add a cost, but they can actually save costs. So things such as, and these are all important topics in the context of events, things such as food waste, energy efficiency, water efficiency. These are all things, transportation, if you will, getting people to walk to more places rather than have to cover additional transportation vehicle costs for vehicles and so on. All of these things can be nicely weaved into the design of the event experience, in many cases without big disruption on the side of the event planner or the event goer, and they can clean up some of the footprint. It's not, these things are not going to solve everything, but it does make sense to make this smart start with everything that's cost saving also, that's easy to change, that people often do not actually mindfully think about and care about, and then to get to the more complicated things. Now, the third point when it comes to this relationship is that at one point we will have to make more serious choices. We will have to sometimes take away options. As a behavioral specialist, I'm all for taking away options. Our societies are built on rules and principles that are around what is good and bad for society, for the individual. So it makes all the sense to begin taking away choices if we know they're damaging for our community, if we know they're damaging for the ecosystems in our destination, because this ultimately means that it's bad for us. So in that sense, I think that at one point we will learn to be bolder about taking away options. And some choice eliminations are not going to be that difficult, not allowing people to fly without, for example, offsetting, at one point will become the norm. And that's, destinations, I hear destinations already talking about moving in such direction. We already see that there are a lot of travel companies, especially in the leisure domain, who make carbon offsetting a non-negotiable element of the price, of the package price. So we will move in that direction. And yes, there's going to be a little bit of complexity. There's going to be probably some dissatisfaction. But I think that we are also overestimating the dissatisfaction that will come with that. Because at one point, if the majority moves in that direction, then it becomes a norm, and it becomes much easier to swallow the fact that, yes, some people will, probably be unhappy, but they'll get used to that. We didn't like the idea of wearing masks and gloves and all of these things, but we very quickly learned to do that, and we got into the habit of doing that because we knew this was necessary for our own well-being and for the well-being of everybody else, and for the sake of being able to actually be together again and have live events. So it's one of those things, when we are forced and we see that there's no other way, we kind of accept it and move forward. So we have to accept that at some point we will also get that, and we will have to accept some inconveniences, but they're far less significant than the inconveniences that can come if we continue to not do much about sustainability and the climate crisis.
Fantastic points. Fantastic points. You
Okay.
have case studies of destinations that optimized their performance and lower their environmental footprint by using BehaviorSMART tactics. Can you give any examples of event organizers that are using behavioral insights to encourage sustainable behavior from business travelers, from attendees?
Absolutely. First, I want to say that actually event planners and the events industry has tremendous power in changing the behavior of people at scale. Because if we, in the leisure context, if we work with companies and destinations and we are thinking about how to change the decision of the individual or the small group of travelers or the family or the group of friends, with events, we are talking about 150, 200, 500, 1,000 people at the same time. And sometimes small changes, say the most common thing, transitioning from using single-use plastics to reusable water bottles, can mean a change or an improvement of magnitude for which we have to work much harder in leisure travel context. So that's one of the things that I would really love more colleagues in the event space to consider, that they actually have the power to change to make leaps forward in changing the behavior of business travelers and event goers, simply because with small changes that they make, they can impact larger groups of people. I have to say that especially in the last couple of years, but especially last year, I'm seeing a very fast transition in events practices. Part of the work that we do involves going to many events, speaking at many events, and it's really exciting to see that things that we were simply using as examples 3-4 years ago now are often common practice. Many events have made the transition, for example, to eliminating plastic bottles everywhere where that's possible. And there's now technology and solutions that can easily allow for that. So I think that less and less there's going to be excuse not to do that. But I'm also seeing very exciting and creative ways in which, for example, we see shifts in food services and the food experience, and that goes in three dimensions. I would say one is focus on local, the willingness not only to base menus on locally sourced seasonal menus, which mean that there's very little imported food, that you're supporting the local economy, that you are looking and aligning with what is available in the respective season. And of course, that means that the carbon footprint that comes with the food service is much lower because everything is sourced from the region. So this emphasis on local, but not simply okay, we'll just logistically reorganize things, but actually highlighting that and adding a little bit of spice and excitement around food that enhances the event experience, but it also goes with optimizing the impact that an event can have. And this is one brilliant example of how sustainability, if we make it more appealing, and of course with food it's easy, with entertainment it's easy, you can both enhance the satisfaction and the experience, but you can also be improving the footprint, the desired footprint that you're giving out. So local emphasis on local food is one thing that I'm seeing a change in very smart and creative ways. Along with that, I'm seeing very interesting and smart ways in which the encouragement towards vegetarian options is also improving. I've attended at least 3 or 4 events in the last 2 years, which have been entirely vegetarian. And what's interesting is, yes, sometimes people say that they miss the meat, or that they really don't feel that the food is diverse enough. But I've also seen very smart and creatively designed menus that almost leave people forgetting that there's no meat at the buffet or at the table, because the food is presented in such interesting ways. It's colorful and appealing that people don't even think about it, even if they know that the food service is entirely vegetarian. So that's something that I'm noticing, and I think that it's quite interesting. This is a great example of how you're eliminating the choice, and you're basically making it part of the design. And especially if you do it creatively and you think about the experience enhancement factor, you can really achieve a lot. And then the third aspect, of course, is food waste. And of course, this is really a major topic that relates not only to events, to the hospitality industry as a whole. And again, there sometimes small and ridiculously simple things, such as making the plate smaller, or making the sizes of the portion smaller, can do miracles. And of course, they don't solve everything, but if they can solve 5, 10, 12% of the problem with something as easy as that, we should go for that, and then figure out how we're going to walk the rest of the path. So this is a great, food is one space where I see a lot of interesting ways in which the events industry is improving its operations. I was recently at an event where and it was not a small event, but all delegates were asked to walk to dinner venues. And it was in the middle of the city. This meant, traffic and so on. It meant 25, 30-minute walks. But actually, people enjoyed it. They didn't even think about it. And one of the evenings, it was raining. But people just walk, they talk on the way, they explore the city, and nobody missed the fact that they're not getting schlepped on and off a bus, and that they're missing actually even a small experience of the city they're visiting. Actually, people enjoyed it. They were talking about, oh, did you see that mural? Oh, did you see the nice park on the side, or that small fountain? Oh, did you see that old house? It looked like, and all of these things are small changes that we can make, and I'm really refreshed to see that they're being made by more and more colleagues. And again, we shouldn't forget that this doesn't damage the experience. On the contrary, it gives people an opportunity to connect with the place. It gives them more opportunity to have a different experience with other delegates, walking together rather than simply talking in that more business environment. And it saves tons of carbon as part of the entire experience. So for me, these are really exciting changes that I'm increasingly seeing being adopted, and I hope that more and more colleagues will try them out and hopefully adopt them as a norm.
Yeah, I love those examples, and I think I keep saying, small changes make huge difference. And when it comes to applying behavioral science, it's all about those small tweaks that you can introduce and apply along the event design and along the attendee's journey, and then that's those solutions provide yield bigger results in most cases.
They do.
And so you just said it as well, and provided great examples about how we can make our choices, our event design more sustainable, but it doesn't really negatively affect experience itself. More than that, it has a positive effect. All right, so I want to ask you about BehaviorSMART Community for Tourism.
Sure.
What is it? What is its mission, and how event organizers can get involved?
Absolutely. So first, I want to say that the project with which we set up the BehaviorSMART community for tourism was initiated after a series of conversations similar to the conversation that you and I are having now, where we kept reaching the conclusion that if more and more of our colleagues in the event space, in the travel space, in the leisure space, actually know about behavioral solutions, behavior smart thinking, and they are helped to see how sometimes very easy changes that they can make in the way that they work can actually make a difference, that this will really make a big difference in our sector. And after several conversations with colleagues, specifically in this case, I'm referring to two dear colleagues from Avitem, which is a French agency working on sustainable cooperation around sustainability in the Mediterranean region. So we had several conversations like this, and then we decided, okay, what if we find a mechanism through which we can actually provide that, since we have access to resources. We are constantly seeing case studies and interesting experiments in this domain. Can we create a platform where we can bring this together, organize it, curate it, and make it very easy for colleagues from the events, from the leisure, from the travel sector to actually use and incorporate in their everyday practices? And this is how we started looking for opportunities to do something like that. We put together a proposal. We applied for Erasmus Plus. This is one of the EU-funded programs provided by the European Union. Our project got accepted, approved, and we were given funding to set up a knowledge base and a community of practice that would first help gather a resource center, so to speak, a virtual resource center with different resources, and also create a network of professionals in our spaces who are interested in using, in sharing, in exchanging knowledge in this domain. And of course, that would allow us to grow the collection of case study stories and lessons learned. So this is what the BehaviorSMART Community for Tourism is. We launched our website relatively recently, and we are continuing. It already has some case studies, but our teams are continuing to work on providing more. Actually, one thing that I need to mention is that in addition to Avitem and BehaviorSMART, our third partner is the Behavioral Insights team. And the Behavioral Insights team is actually one of the most influential global organizations that helps governments and policymakers use behavioral sciences in ways that make policies and social programming better and smarter and more effective. So from them, we are also very lucky to have the opportunity to incorporate a lot of content from other sectors. So maybe something that worked in the insurance service or in public transportation, we can borrow and actually translate into a case study that can then be replicated in travel and event sector. So this is what the program is about. The idea is for this to be a resource that's free and accessible for anyone who's interested. So I hope that colleagues who are listening to us will tap on that. We have a series of webinars that also looks at different stories, examples, principles of using behavior, smart thinking. And then, as I mentioned, a collection of case studies, a collection of TED Talks, a library references for books, if people want to dive deeper, and so on. So we really want to make it very easy for people to get curious about, and of course to use in their work behavior smart resources.
Absolutely. I will definitely, I checked the website, and I watched one of the webinars, and I can definitely say it's a great resource. So everyone who is listening, please do check it out, and the link will be in the show notes as well. So a couple of final questions, Milena.
Absolutely.
First, what resources would you recommend to destination management professionals and to event planners looking to make their events and their destinations more sustainable?
Sure. For me, of course, I would first recommend the BehaviorSMART Community of Tourism website, where we have tried to bring together a lot of the resources that each of us has used and found useful. So for me, this really is becoming a one-stop shop for such resources. You will see there that we also have initiated the LinkedIn group, which brings together people who are curious about or who already practice. So you can join that community, ask questions, ask for ideas, and really get insights on how others have used and what they have learned in their practices from this. We also have added there TED Talks. There's now so many TED Talks, so many books that you can read, that we hope that with the curation that we have provided there, we are helping people figure out what is relevant to them in that sea of literature and resources. So I really would encourage people to start there. And then, of course, they can find a lot of references for other publications, for other resources that they can use, including podcasts and more academic readings and so on.
Okay, thank you. And my last signature question is, the podcast title is What If I Told You? So can you complete the sentence with one takeaway relevant to our conversation today? What if I told you?
I see that most of the answers are quick and short, but I'm tempted to say that what if I told you that events can be sustainable starting tomorrow if we are smart about human behavior? I know it's a little bit longer, but it really synthesizes, I feel, the essence of what we do and what I think this conversation was about.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today again. And I think it was a great conversation. I invite everyone again to connect with Milena and learn more about how behavioral science can help you make your events more sustainable. Thank you for tuning in to What If I Told You, the Event Psychology podcast. For more brain science insights and for this episode recap, I invite you to join the Event Psychology Club. Also, if you want to upgrade your skills and get research-based insights for your events, I invite you to take the Event Psychology Lab online course, which I created for event pros like you. Until next time, bye-bye.